Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here today and getting this opportunity to share my perspective and my reflections of what I think about becoming. And again, I just want to start off today introducing myself a little bit. Slide. And, the point here is actually a disclaimer. As, the speakers before me have highlighted already as well. I don't know if this is the right answer. I myself is in the process of becoming. I think becoming is a lifelong, continuous journey that we need to go through. But what I want to share with you today is my reflection of what I think about designing a meaningful, purposeful life as of today. Right. Let me start off with a few things. The very first thing is I want to share with you why I think you need a life purpose statement. Right? And, allow me to set the scene to kind of share with you a metaphor that I want you to think about. Think about being a sailor on a sailboat out in the ocean. Right? Because I think life is like the ocean. There are a lot of things out there that we cannot control. It can be sunny days, it can be cloudy days, it can be stormy days. We don't know what kind of weather or terrain we'll find ourselves out. And the very first framework I want to share with you, which I found to be very helpful, it's actually, on the next slide. It's this framework that Scott Barry Kaufman, a writer and a psychologist, have put together that I personally find is very useful to summarize this law. It's basically two parts to life, right? There's this boat or your hull, which is these bottom three things that you have. And that's fundamentally what you need to survive, right? It's around safety. It's about all of us have requirements and needs around having shelter, having a place to sleep, having food, having enough sleep, right? And not being in physical danger to be attacked by people. But after that sense of safety and safety is secure, the next thing we strive for is we are all social animals. So we look for a connection, right? With our families, with our loved ones, with our friends, people who care for you, who love you and will look after you. And then there's that piece about self-esteem, which is around self-identity, who you stand for, having that confidence. And, those three things, having that is the bare minimum to survive in this crazy VUCA world out there. Right. And what I want to say today, the very first point I want to highlight is actually that is actually not sufficient for life. What you need and what I view is that we need the sail mass as well. And the sail mass is really anchored with that purpose, your true north up there. What is your life? What is the meaning that you define your life to be? What do you want to do with the life that you're living now? And that really gives you that ability to then go love. And what love really means in this framework is to care deeply and strive for something that's more than yourself. And, that leads to exploration, to curiosity, to learn things, to try things. And that really helps you, gives you the tool to actually navigate through the ocean and the stormy days that will come as part of flight. So what I want you to remember just on this first slide is to know that, you shouldn't have a life purpose statement and be clear about what it is. Because if you don't, and you just have this hull that boats there, yes, you can survive in life. You won't go underwater. But as stormy days come and life happens in the ocean, you'll be at the whim where you'll just be drifting through life, where the waves take you, where the currents take you, and you have no control over where you want to actually go. So that's the very first thing I do want to highlight. The next thing I want to highlight on this part is, I used to think that purpose was something that you found, right? That's something that some teachers and have told me when I was growing up, or, when we were discussing with friends, was like, oh, maybe there's something out there that is uniquely for me. But I think reflecting now, I think purpose is actually something you build intentionally day by day, right? As I said before, in that previous framework, it's about building up that sail mast. It's about defining what that purpose statement is. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be correct. Right? But at least you have something and a sense of direction and you aim for it. And then you continuously refine it over time as you learn more about yourself, as you learn more about the world. And that takes, and that's why I think purpose is something that is you built through your daily choices, through your daily action, and through your daily habits. So that's the very first thing I want to share today. The second thing I want to talk about is, if you start thinking about, okay, I'm going to have a sense of purpose in my life. Now let's start thinking about how to be defined. Right? And I want to share the second framework with you today, which is having a more meaningful, holistic definition of what a meaningful, purposeful life is. Because this is something that I wish I knew when I was your age, when I was 16, 17. This is something I just stumbled upon in the last 10 years. So let me get to that. And, we talked about before earlier when I was 17, most people were asking me, oh, what do you want to become? Right? It's part of our college application essays as well. And, at the time, I just thought very simply about it. I didn't think deeply enough about it. And I'm just kind of like, okay, I'll get good grades in school. I'll get into good college. I will then get a good job. And I think life will take care of itself. Looking back, I think that was very, very shallow. And I wish someone would have shared with me this framework, the 5 times over framework that I'll share with you next. So on the next slide, let me just briefly cover this. Again, the credit goes to this author, Zahil Blue. He came up with this nice little summary of the framework. Well, we often think about what we want in life. At least when I went through that process, I was like, okay, I'll get a good job, I'll get good income, and once I have enough money, then I can, the rest will take care of itself. Life will be good. But then again, when I was reading and talking to people, and I was reading some books, I then realized actually there are a lot of rich people out there, people with a lot of money, who are actually very depressed or who are very miserable, and they're not actually where they want to be out of life. And that actually led to this question of, what is a meaningful, purposeful life? And I think it's nicely defined by these 5. You got to kind of balance the 5 types of wealth, right? Because when we often think about wealth, we only think about this financial wealth. And don't get me wrong, I think it is important to have a certain level of financial wealth because it should become a tool that actually helps you with other types of wealth. But often, I think where we struggle before, or people only what they realize only when they're in their 30s or 40s, chasing a certain type of amount, is then they define the wrong amount. And they often lose sight of what's actually important. Right? And, for instance, time wealth, right? This is about having control over your own time, having awareness, and having the ability to choose what you do with your time when. And oftentimes when you're just chasing financial wealth, which is really your career, your job, this is the first thing you compromise. Right? You're just like, okay, I'm going, I work really hard at the office. I gotta do this, finish this project. Maybe after this one, once I accumulate this much money, then I'll have time for my family. Then I'll have time for my kids. Then I'll have time for my friends. But then that ball always just keeps moving, and you often might end up when you're 40, 50, 60 later in life, and you're like, oh, where did my time go? Right? So we don't want to fall into that trap. So, that's an example of time loss. Another thing that can often be some compromise is your physical wealth. Right? At the end of the day, when we're born, we're given this one set of body, and that's about it. You can't go and replace it. And we got to take care of it. Right? You got to sleep well, eat well, maintain and exercise. And a lot of times when we get so focused on just work or one definition of wealth, you don't make time for exercise, you don't make time for sleep, you don't make time to eat well. And in which case you can be compromising your physical wealth. And sorry, if you could just go back to the previous one. There you go, next. And then it gets on to this piece around mental wealth as well, right? Similar like your physical wealth, your mind, you got to take care of it as well. And if you're not managing stress well, if you're not taking enough time to recharge, you can get stressed out, you can get depressed, you can lose direction, or you don't have meaning. Then it's also not really balanced. And then there's social wealth, which is extremely important. This is about having deep quality relationships with the people that you love and care about. Right? And if you look at these Harvard happiness studies about what makes a good life, what they found at the end of, following these people for 70 years in their lives is that at the end of the day, when people look back, what matters the most is not about the job titles, right? It's not about how much money they have in the bank account. It's actually about how many deep quality relationships they've had. And that's what this social wealth is all about. And again, it's also not about how many followers or friends you have on social media, right? It's actually about when things get tough, who is there for you, right? When things go rough and when you fail, right? Do you have someone's shoulder that you can rely on? That's what we mean by social wealth. And again, there's no right answer of what is the perfect formula of how you balance between these 5 types of wealth. This, again, is something that you need to decide and define for yourself. And as you go through the different seasons of life, right, you'll have to prioritize different wealths along the way because our priorities will be different and our needs will be different. So with that being said, then let's move on to the next part, which is I want to give you an exercise for you to start thinking about your life purpose statement. All right. On the next slide, let me first ask, who here in the audience today have a life purpose statement that you've thought about and that you've written down? Just a show of hands. All right, we have a few. That's good. For the ones that have it, I think it's okay. It's a hard, difficult question to do. But I think, if anything you take away from the talk today, I think you should try to just draft something as it. And to get you started, I'll share with you an exercise that helped for me when I started this work for myself 12 years ago. And then I call it the age 90 exercise or the deathbed exercise. And I'll share that. So on the next slide, go see, right? So effectively, it kind of builds off of another author, Stephen Covey's concept, which is that the best way to define or design your life is to begin at the end and work your way backwards. Right? And you can apply the same kind of thinking to your own life plan and designing your own life. And so then let's imagine you're 90 years old, you're on your deathbed, and you just passed away. But like in movies or in games, you have this opportunity to become a spirit. You float above, and you can actually observe and see and witness your own funeral. Now ask yourself this question. Who do you see there at your funeral? Who is sitting in the front rows? Who do you see coming up the stage and speaking your eulogy? What do you want them saying about you? How do you want them to remember you? What would be the words that people use to write on your tombstone to your going to be tombstone? Right? So I'm not trying to make it very morbid. I'm just asking these questions because for me, at least, it helps me to then think clearly about actually at the end of my life, what it is most important for me. All right. And that helps me refine and think and focus on what really matters. And then work backwards to think about, okay, from where I am today, how do I build towards that life? So that's an exercise that I hope you could take away and try to do on your own. And on next, what I'll do is I'll just share with you an example of my own life purpose statement and how it has helped me in my career to become who I am today. And again, this is just an example. This is my current iteration of this. The very first version of this I came up with when I was a senior in college over 12 years ago. And I've just been refining it over the years. And let me share with you on the next slide, my current working version. It's to live the meaningful, purposeful, fulfilling, and joyful life with the people that I love. And to use the platform that I have to be a force of positive change in my community. I know it's a mouthful, but the key ones are really around, I want to be in the community, which is really Myanmar, because this is where I was born and raised, in the country that I love, and who I identify with. So I want to be here, and I want to use the platform that I have to be a force of positive change for the people closest to me, the people that I love, right? To my family, to my friends, and also to the people that I've interacted on a daily basis, colleagues, my team members that work here, right? And whatever platform that I have. And with this, let me share with you 2 concrete examples where it's helped me decide on what to do at 2 critical junctures in my life. The very first one was actually in early 2015, when I was about to graduate college in the US, and I was deciding between 2 options. Staying in the US, working there, or coming back to Yoma. And, if I were staying in the US, the job offers that I had actually pays a lot more. But then again, being in the US would be, I would just be a cog in the machine. On the other hand, when I really look at coming back to Myanmar, what really stood out for me was, when I wrote down this purpose statement, at the time, actually, it was to be part of the generation of people that came back to Myanmar to bring about positive change, right? And I thought, actually, if I really truly believe in my life purpose statement about trying to make an impact back in Myanmar, I cannot do it from halfway across the world. I actually need to be in Myanmar, right? And that ultimately helped me decide to choose to come back to Myanmar and started my career at Delta Capital over 11 years ago. And so that's one example. The second example that I can share with you, where it's really helped me, is February 2021, right? When things in Myanmar has changed, a lot of people who came back to Myanmar and who had the opportunity to go back out really considered it. And, a lot of people also chose to go back out. But at that moment, 1 weekend, my wife and I, we were walking and we were talking and we were planning about life as well. But we reached our decision to stay in Myanmar very, very quickly. It wouldn't even take that long because we're like, hey, we both came back. We have similar life goals and life purpose. And we realized that actually, if we really do believe that our life statement, what we're saying, then when things get tough, it's even more important that we get here. We can't just be here for good times, right? So then we're like, okay, we're going to say, no matter what it is, we'll figure it out and go with this. And, and I think that's the best decision we've made because over the last 5 years, we've really then, personally for my own career as well, a couple of months after that, there were people who then decided to leave and it had opened up different opportunities for my career that I normally wouldn't have if I were in any other market. Right? I was given at a much earlier age in my career, I was given a much more senior role to manage and oversee a boat business. And that leadership journey over the last 5 years is something that I wouldn't trade for the world because I've learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot more about how to become the best person that I can. So those are just two examples of how I use my life purpose statement for my own life and becoming who I am today. Then lastly, to close, I just want to share with you, right? I've already talked about, kind of make a case to you why I think you should have a life purpose statement, giving you a framework of how to think about having a holistic, meaningful life. And if you're choosing to go down this path, then I also feel responsible to share with you some common traps that you should be aware of and knowing how to navigate through it. So then the first common trap I'll talk about is this trap of becoming too rigid with the plan, right? Because, it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of effort to really figure out what you want in life. How about with a life plan and you work backwards and create a life roadmap of what you want to be. But what can often happen, and what happened to me as well, was you fall in love with your plan and you're like, oh, this is it. I need to make it work. But then what can happen? Let me go back to the sailing metaphor that I had at the beginning of my talk. Imagine you're on this boat and, you create this roadmap already. So it can be your map to reach this golden island that you've dreamed up for yourself, right? And then it tells you got to go this way, that way, this way. And then in life, you're starting to go that way. And then you realize, due to, life being messy in the ocean, to weather events might have an iceberg that's suddenly right in the middle of the path that you're supposed to go through. What do you do when you're in that moment? If you're too rigid, you might be like, oh, my boat is strong enough. I'm just going to soldier on and go through it. However, upon impact with the iceberg, your hull might break, water might start coming in, and you might actually capsize, and you might become Titanic, which none of us want to be. Or alternatively, do you choose to pivot? And I think that's really what we need. You got to stay flexible, right? When I say have a life purpose statement and have a roadmap, it's to give you a sense of direction. But what you need to do is continuously be aware, right? Learn about the world, learn about yourself and what you're becoming. And with the additional information and facts that you have, you should be adapting your plan as needed. And you're flexible and you move the pivot as you need. And then you can ultimately still get to where you want to get. Right? So that's the first common trap that I want to warn you about if you're going down this path. Don't fall in love with your plan too much that you become too rigid and you're closing doors to potentially even better opportunities that might be out there for you. And moving on, the second common trap is you focus too much on the end or the future or what you want to become, that you forget to really enjoy the present and the journey of what you become. Right? And this is, something that I would really warn you guys too, right? Imagine going back to that sailboat metaphor. You're on this boat. You're just too focused on being very efficient and optimal and reaching your destination as quickly as possible, that you might be sailing past a beautiful island full of amazing experiences and adventures, but you don't even notice it there because you're just too focused on your end goal and you just sail right past it. You don't want that, right? If you're coming across golden opportunities to really enjoy life, make sure you make time for it. Stay present. And as I've said before with the social well part, at the end of the day, the most important thing is to make sure you're investing in the deep quality relationship for the people that you have. Make time for that as well. Stay present. So with that being said, to avoid these two common traps, I think what I would advise would be to build and having the right support system for you. And really it's about having really, really good people around you who you let onto your boat. The people who share similar life purpose with you, similar life values, core values with you, and people who really know you well. Maybe some of them might even know you better than you know yourself. People who really love you and care for you deeply or what's the best for you. Because when they're there as your support system, they will let you know if you're straying off path. They will let you know if you're falling in any of these traps and you're too focused on the future or the past and they're not staying resident enough. They will let you know if they think you're not balanced in your 5 types of love. They will let you know if you changed enough or if the environment has changed so much that your plan is from moderate. Right? So choose very carefully and build it support system. And then to close, I just want to share the key message with you, which is really, don't just drift into adulthood. I want you to design it intentionally. And to design it intentionally, think of this lifeboat metaphor. Build that sail mast. Figure out what your life purpose is for you. Because this is something only you get to find for yourselves. No one else can do it for you. And also know that there's no right or wrong answer to this. Just have a version that works for you. And once you have that, I hope then you have a boat that is big enough, is strong enough, and you have the right support system around you so that you can navigate through this crazy VUCA world of the ocean and nav. And you become the best version of yourself that you can be to this life. And also just remember as you go through this journey on your boat through life to enjoy the journey as well and have fun. Because at the end of the day, I think our lives are finite and short. And gotta make the most of it with the people that we love. Thank you.